lock and iloc. Lock and iloc are two specific functions which are provided by Pandas, which can be applicable on to play with rows and columns. So how we are going to use this lock and iloc? Now in the lock and iloc, the major difference is, first of all, the lock will helps you to pick your rows and columns based on the label name. So what's the label name? The label name is nothing but the column name. This name, age, city, and score. These are names, right? Based on these names or labels, these can be called as labels as well. So based on column names. Let's say if you want to check how that lock tries to perform, let's take a separate data here. Now let's check this data frame. What we're doing is the same thing. The name, age, city, and 4. We have 4 columns. For the 4 columns, we are going to come up with how many rows? 8 rows here. Yes. And the same thing, missing values as well. Now, once we have this data frame, what we're going to do, let's say if we want to select first 5 rows and name, city, columns. Okay. Let's say if we want to select first 5 rows, what are the first 5 rows? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we want to check only name and city, okay, if you want to check only name and city, so how are you going to do that? So you are going to do it using lock operation. What is the lock function here? So what lock tries to do? Lock tries to check, as we discussed, it focuses only on the label names. What are the label names here? Label in the sense column names, the name column and age column. We are only going to get name and age column here. Okay. Then how many we are going to get? We are going to get first 5 rows. Okay. We are going to get first 5 rows. Let's see what we get once we run this. Okay. What we got it applied on first 4 rows here, comma. See, whenever you apply lock or iloc, the first thing by default mentions it as for rows. Whatever you are trying to do, it is applicable on rows. So what are rows here? All of these are rows. So how many you mentioned here? Let's say you mentioned only 4 rows. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Until 4 rows, you are going to get all the 4 rows. And if you mention columns, which are nothing but label names. What are label names here? Column names. Name and city. We are going to get only those things. Let's say if you haven't mentioned any label names here, what are we going to get? We are going to get top 4, first 5 rows of all the data frame. Okay, first 4 rows of data frame. In data frame, how many columns are there? 1, 2, 3, and 4. All the 4 columns are going to be get. Now, if you don't want all the 4 columns, let's say if you want entire rows itself, simply we are going to mention all the rows. My bad here. Yes, we are going to mention all the rows. So how many rows we have? We are going to get all the 8 rows which are already present in the data frame. If we want to mention only 4 rows, or let's say only 2 rows, we can do it by mentioning first 2 rows. Let's say for 6 rows, we are going to get only first 6 rows. This is how we are going to go get all the rows of a data frame using this lock operation. But whenever you want to fetch the columns, specific columns, how you are going to do that? You are going to do that by putting those columns, specifically label names of the columns. Names of the columns. What are names of columns? Let's say you want to see the first 6 rows of only score here. Let's mention score. Let's say if you want to mention first 6 columns of scores as well as age as well. How you can see that? Yes. So for simplicity purpose, let's try to run it in another cell. These are first 6 rows. If you want to check top 6 rows, you are going to check that. And now on top of it, first 6 rows of what? The first 6 rows of what? You are going to check this age and score as well. Let's say if you want to check the age and score as well. How you are going to check? Comma, because this is for rows. The second part is for columns. You are going to mention the column names. What are the columns? Let's say you want to mention only score, right? Yes. So you are going to get first 6 columns of scores. Now, sorry, first 6 rows of scores, top 6 rows. Now, again, if you want to check till 6 rows, we need to check score as well as city. Sorry, age and city. Let's say how we are going to do that. First 3, top 3. Let's say if If you want to check top 3, we are going to get 3, age, and city. That is how you are going to use this lock operation. Lock operation tries to use what are the rows that you are going to fetch and what are the columns on which you are going to fetch these rows. If you want to mention columns, then specifically you need to mention those columns in a list. If you don't want to mention any columns, if you don't mention any columns here, then by default, it's going to check or it's going to take all the columns. It's going to apply this this operation lock function on all the columns, and you are going to go get the output here.